So again, thank you all for being here. Welcome. I'm excited to be celebrating of The Dream of Apples, selected poems of Federico García Lorca, translated by Rebecca Seiferle. I'm Christopher Nelson, publisher and editor at Linden Press. We are a nonprofit poetry press based in Grinnell, Iowa. Our mission is to foster excellent poetry and to give a portion of proceeds to reforestation. To date, we have planted 800 trees with the help of our readers. For the writers in the audience, if you're interested, we are currently reading submissions of chapbook manuscripts and submissions of poetry for our journal Under a Warm Green Linden that is published biannually in June and December. You can visit our website, Linden Press, for more information about that. Rebecca has kindly agreed to answer some questions after the reading tonight, so I'll facilitate that. If at any time you have comments, ideas, questions, you can put them in the chat, and at the end, I'll go through and select some things we can talk about. How's my audio? Does this sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Federico García Lorca is the preeminent Spanish poet and playwright of the 20th century. From the beginning, his work was remarkably versatile, as he published in a variety of genres. In 1928, his Romancero Gitano, Gypsy Ballads, made him famous in Spain and led to international acclaim. In his lifetime, Lorca published 5 collections of poetry, but a number of celebrated works were published posthumously and in other countries, as the works were viewed as too controversial in Francoist Spain. In 1936, Lorca was killed by fascist forces, and following his death, his books were publicly burned in Granada, and further publication was banned. But in the decades following, his works have been translated into many languages, where they have continued to influence subsequent generations of artists in a variety of fields. Of Federico García Lorca, translator Rebecca Seiferle writes, quote, "There are few Spanish poets who have so captured the English speaker's imagination, and yet we continue to read Lorca as we have read him, which is to say, through the filters of our own assumptions. Similarly, previous translations have gone in pursuit of surrealism or music or romanticism at the expense of the sharp clarity and elemental intelligence of the original. Breathtaking in its versatility, Lorca's poetry conveys the sense that there are many Lorcas, but elusive, a play of presence and absence. For Lorca, fluidity and evasion are essential to the truth of poetry. His deep anguish, his performative masks, his sense of difference, and his identification with those also marginalized. His sense of the interpenetration of absence and presence all begin to interconnect if viewed from a queered center. These translations seek only the original, its deep intelligence, where a phrase can convey what Lorca called duende, an elusive something else that evades all definition, a mysterious force that everyone feels and no philosopher has explained. Rebecca Seiferle has published 4 collections of poetry. Wild Tongue won the Grub Street National Poetry Prize, and Bitters won the Western State Book Award. She's a noted translator from the Spanish, having published translations of Peruvian poet Cesar Vallejo's Trilce and the Black Heralds. Her translations of various poets are included in The Whole Island, 6 Decades of Cuban Poetry, and Reversible Monuments, Contemporary Mexican Poetry. Her essay on Federico García Lorca, Black Cactus Open in Reeds, appeared in Into English, Poems, Translations, and Commentaries. She's been awarded a Lannan Literary Fellowship, an Arizona Commission on the Arts grant, and was Tucson Poet Laureate for 2 terms. And for The Dream of Apples, selected poems of Federico García Lorca, she received the Stephen Mitchell Prize for Excellence in Translation. It's been a real pleasure to work with Rebecca to bring this book out into the world, and I'm really honored to have been working on this project with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rebecca Seiferle.
Thank you, Christopher. And it's been a joy and an honor to work with you too. And bringing this book to where it's an actual book sitting on a table. Though I have lived with it for so long, it's always new in some way. Thank you all for being here. And without much ado, because I still remain the nervous introvert underneath it all, I will start reading some poems. And I'm just going to start with kind of selection, beginning with Lorca's early work and sort of moving through the stream of apples and reading particular poems as I go. Hour of Stars, 1920. The spherical silence of night on the musical staff of infinity. I go out naked into the street, ripe with lost poems. The blackness, riddled by the cricket song, has that will-o'-the-wisp, dead sound. That musical light that the spirit perceives. The skeletons of 1,000 butterflies sleep in my compound. There's a youth of crazy breezes on the river. Desire, 1920. Only your warm heart and nothing more. My paradise of field without nightingale or lyres, with a discreet river and a little fountain, without the spur of the wind on the leafy branch, not even a star that wants to be leaf. An enormous light that was the other's firefly in a field of broken cases. A clear rest, and there are kisses. The echo sonorous birthmarks would open very far. Your warm heart, nothing more. Song of the Motionless Garden. What you didn't suspect lives and trembles in the air. The treasures of the day you barely touch. Loaded down, they come and go without anyone looking at them. They arrive broken, but leave virginal, made of seeds. They speak of things to you, and you don't listen. The world is a fountain, fresh, distinct, and constant. the treasures of the day you barely touch. The pure silence forbids you the torrent of blood, but you have two eyes to retrace the channels. The treasures of the day you barely touch. What you didn't suspect lives and trembles in the air. The garden was entwined by its stagnant perfumes, each leaf dreaming a different dream. Suspension bridges. Oh, what a great crowd, invisible and rejuvenated, comes to this garden to decay forever. Every step on earth takes us to a new world. We support each foot on a suspension bridge. I understand that the right path doesn't exist, only a great labyrinth of multiple crossroads. Our feet, walking, continuously create enormous fans of terminal roads. Oh, garden of white theories. Oh, garden of what I am not, but could have and should have been. Dawn and bell ringing outside the garden. The sun with its 100 horns lifts the low sky. The bulls on the plain repeat the same gesture. The shuddering stone of the ancient bell towers wakes up and sets out on the road with the great flock of the wind. Now in the river, the battles of fishes begin. My soul, boy and girl, be quiet. The song wants to be light. The song wants to be light. In the dark, the song has strings of phosphorus and moon. The light doesn't know what it wants. In its opal limits, it finds itself and comes back. Berlin. The song that I'll never say has fallen asleep on my lips. The song that I'll never say. On the honeysuckles there was a firefly, and the moon was pricking the water with the prey. Then I dreamed the song that I'll never say, song full of lips and faraway channels, songs full of hours wasted in shadow, song of a star living in perpetual day. Bacchus. Green virgin rumor, the fig stretches its arms out to me. Your shadow, like a panther, stalks my lyric shadow. The moon counts dogs, makes a mistake, and begins again. Yesterday, tomorrow, black and green, you court my circle of laurels. Who would love you as I do if you could change my heart? And the fig shouts at me and advances, terrible and multiplied. Debussy. My shadow goes silently through ditch water. By my shadow, the frogs are deprived of the stars. The shadow sends my body reflections of quiet things. My shadow goes like an immense violet-colored mosquito. 100 crickets want to gild the light of the canebrake. A light is born in my breast, reflected from the ditch. The moon appears. When the moon rises, the bells are lost, and the paths appear impenetrable. When the moon rises, the sea covers the earth, and the heart feels itself an island in infinity. No one eats oranges under the full moon. It is necessary to eat fruit green and frostbitten. When the moon rises out of 100 equal faces, the silver coin sobs in the pocket. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I was, I have been, but I am not. I was. Oh, marvelous arch at the back of the throat of the cypress and its shadow, ankle of full moon, ankle of moon alone. I have been. The moon was joking, saying it was rose. With a cape of wind, my love threw itself into the waves, but I am not. Before a broken window, I saw my lyric close. Fiddle to Enrique Duran. You want me to tell you the secret of spring, and I am to the secret as to the fir tree whose 1,000 tiny fingers point out 1,000 paths. I'll never tell you, my love, why the river runs so slowly, but I'll place on my still water voice the glowing ash of your gaze. Spin me around, dear dark one. Take care with my little leaves. Spin me around and around, playing the wheel of love. I, I can't tell you, even if I want to, the secret of spring. Granada in 1850. From my room, I hear the fountain, a finger of grapevine and a ray of sun point toward the sight of my heart. Through the August air, the clouds go away. I am the dream that I don't dream inside the fountain. Of another mode. The bonfire gives the afternoon field some antlers of an enraged deer. All the valley stretches out. Through its loins prances a light wind. Air crystallizes beneath the smoke. Cat's eye, sad and yellow. I, in my eyes, walk through the branches walk through the river. My essential things arrive, their refrains of refrains, among reeds and downcast afternoon. How odd that I'm named Federico. Village. On the bare hill, a Calvary, clear water and centenarian olives, through the alleys, muffled men, and on the towers, weather vanes spinning, eternally spinning, old lost village, in the Andalusia of tears. Dagger. The dagger enters the heart like the blade of the plow in the wasteland. No, don't stick it in me, no. The dagger, like ray of sun, sets fire to terrible depression. No, don't stick it in me, no. Crossroad. Wind of the east, a lantern and the dagger in the heart. The street has a tremor of rope under tension, a tremor of a huge blowfly. In every part, I see the dagger in the heart. Surprise. The dead man was left in the street with a dagger in his chest. No one knew him. How the lantern trembled. Mother, how the lantern trembled. It was daybreak. No one could peer into his eyes, open to the harsh air. That dead one was left in the street, that one with a dagger in his chest, that one that no one knew. The poet prays to the Virgin for her help. I pray to the Divine Mother of God, Heavenly Queen of all creation, that she give me the pure light of little animals that have a single letter in their vocabulary. Little animals without souls, simple form, far from the cat's despicable wisdom, far from the owl's fictitious profundity, far from the horse's sculptural knowledge, creatures that love without eyes, with a single sense of undulating infinity, and that gather in great heaps to be eaten by birds. I pray for the single dimension that the little flat animals have, to tell of things covered with earth under the shoes, hard innocence. There's no one who cries because he understands the million tiny deaths that the market contains, that China crowd of decapitated onions, and that great yellow sun of old crushed fish. You, Mother, always terrifying, whale of all skies. You, Mother, always joking, neighbor of borrowed parsley. You know I must understand the slightest flash of the world to be able to speak of the world. Gisela of Unexpected Love. No one understood the perfume of the dark magnolia of your womb. No one knew that you martyred love's hummingbird between your teeth. 1,000 little Persian horses slept in the plaza with the moon of your forehead, while I braided fortnights to your waist enemy of the snow. Between gypsum and jasmines, your gaze was a pale branch of seeds. I search my heart to give you the ivory letters that say always, always, always. Garden of my agony, your body fugitive always, the blood of your veins in my mouth, your mouth already without light for my death. Gazella of the terrible presence. I want water without a channel. I want the wind without valleys. I want the night without eyes, and my heart without gold flower. That oxen talk with great leaves, and the earthworm dies of shadow. That the skull's teeth shine, and silkworm disease yellows the silk. I can see the jewel of wounded night wrestling, screwed into noon. I can resist a sunset of green venom and the broken arches where time suffers. But don't show me your clean nakedness like a black cactus open in the reeds. Leave me with a craving for dark planets, but don't show me your fresh waste. Priscilla of desperate love. Night doesn't want to come, so that you won't come, and I can't go. But I'll go, even if the sun of scorpions devours my forehead. But you'll come, with your tongue burned by salt rain. Day doesn't want to come, so that you won't come, and I can't go. But I'll go, handing my non-carnation over to the toads. But you'll come through tubid sewers of darkness. Neither day nor day won't come, so I die for you, and you die for me. Gazella of love that doesn't let itself be seen. Just to hear the bell of Vela, I put on for you a crowd of verbena. Granada was moon drowned among the ivies. Just to hear the bell of Vela, I ripped out my garden of Cartagena. Granada was a doe, pink by the weathercocks, just to hear the bell of the Vela. I was burning in your body without knowing whose it was. Isabella of the bitter fruit. There's bitter fruit and a world of 1,000 terraces. Not even the smallest hand can break open the door of water. Where are you going? Oh, where? Where? There's a sky of 1,000 windows, battle of livid bees, and there's bitter fruit. Bitter. It aches in the sole of the foot, in the interior of the face, and it aches in the fresh trunk of night newly cut. Love, my enemy, bite your bitter fruit. Gazella of the memory of love. Don't take away your memory. Leave it alone in my breast. A quaver of white cherry in the martyrdom of January. A wall of bad dreams divides me from the dead. I give the pity of fresh lily to a plaster heart. All night in the orchard, my eyes like two dogs. all night eating the poisonous quinces. Sometimes the wind is a tulip of fear, a sick tulip, the daybreak of winter. A wall of bad dreams divides me from the dead. Grass covers with silence the gray valley of your body. Around the arch of encounter, poison hemlock is growing, but leave your memory, leave it alone in my breast. Gisela of the Dark Death. I want to sleep the dream of apples, to withdraw from the tumult of cemeteries. I want to sleep the dream of that child who wanted to cut his heart on the high seas. I don't want to hear again that the dead don't lose their blood, that the rotten mouth goes on begging for water. I don't want to go into the martyrdoms of the grass, nor the moon with a serpent's mouth that works before dawn. I want to sleep a while, a minute, a century, so that everyone knows I have not died, that there's a stable of gold on my lips, that I'm the small friend of the west wind, that I'm the immense shadow of my tears. Cover me at dawn with a veil, because it will throw fistfuls of ants at me, and soak my shoes with hard water, so that the sting of the scorpions slides off. Because I want to sleep the dream of apples, to learn a weeping that will cleanse me of earth, because I want to live with that dark child who wanted to cut his heart on the high seas. The Scylla of the Escape. I have lost myself many times in the sea, with my ear full of recently cut flower, with my tongue full of love and agony. I have lost myself many times in the sea, as I lose myself in the heart of some children. There's no one who, upon giving a kiss, doesn't feel the smile of faceless people. No one who, upon touching the newly born, forgets the motionless skull of horses. Because roses search the forehead for a hard country of bone, and the hands of man have no other meaning than to imitate roots underground. As I lose myself in the heart of some children, I have lost myself many times in the sea. Ignorant of water, I go on looking for a death full of light that consumes me. Messina of weeping. I've shut my balcony because I don't want to hear the weeping, but from behind the gray walls, nothing is heard but the weeping. There are very few angels that sing. There are very few dogs that howl. 1,000 violins fit in the palm of my hand. But the weeping is an immense dog. The weeping is an immense angel. The weeping is an immense violin. The tears muzzle the wind, and nothing is heard but the weeping. Casita of the Impossible Hand. I want nothing more than a hand, a wounded hand if possible. I don't want more than a hand, even if 1,000 bedless nights pass by. It would be a pale lily of time. It would be a dove tethered to my heart. It would be the guardian that on the night of my death would prohibit all entrance to the moon. I don't want more than that hand for the daily oils and the white sheet of my agony. I don't want more than that hand to hold the wing of my death. Everything else passes away. Blush already without a name, perpetual heavenly body. Everything else is the other. Sad wind, while the leaves flee in flocks. So there's just a couple more here of these final casita. Casita of the Rose. The rose wasn't searching for the dawn, almost eternal on its stem. It searched for something else. The rose wasn't searching for science or shadow. Confined by flesh and dream, it searched for something else. The rose wasn't searching for the rose. Motionless through the sky, it searched for something else. Casita of the Dark Doves to Claudio Guillen. Through branches of floral, I saw two dark doves. One was the sun, the other the moon. Little neighbors, I asked them, where is my grave? In my tail, said the sun, in my throat, said the moon, and I, who was traveling with the earth at my waist, saw two eagles of snow and one naked girl. One was the other, and the girl was no one. Little eagles, I asked them, where is my grave? In my tail, said the sun. In my throat, said the moon. Through branches of laurel, I saw two naked doves. One was the other, and both were no one. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Let's give her a virtual hand. It was great. It's so great to be read to and to hear a sort of onrush of these poems, Lorca across his years, across the
Mhm.
books that he wrote. Yeah, wow, it's sort of entrancing, isn't it?
Yes, that is
Um,
interesting, this work.
so if you'd like to ask a question, or you can type it in the chat, or you can virtually raise your hand and I can unmute you. There's just a few of us. I don't think that would be a problem. Maybe while you're thinking that, I'll start us off with a question. I'm wondering, Rebecca, if you tell us your relationship with Lorca's work. I know that it goes back some years, maybe 20 years. Um, how was your engagement with this project over time, and what made you stick with it? It's a huge undertaking, yeah?
Uh-huh, yeah. Well, I mean, I first encountered Lorca's work when I was in high school in Laramie, Wyoming, all places, and the New Directions selected poems at that time where I encountered his work. And at that point in time, I was, without going into it, my family had moved a lot, so I was in Laramie for a couple of years, which was the longest I'd ever lived anywhere. And I could have graduated early from high school, but the state of Wyoming did not allow that to happen. So I took a lot of electives, and I think it was first his poems, and then also some French poets, Rimbaud, Verlaine, who Lorca wrote his poem to, that I felt this connection to my own inability to express myself. It was almost as if learning these other languages, because I began studying Spanish and French and Latin, reconnected me to the sense that I had that I wasn't connected to my own language, by which I meant this way to connect with my own experience and express it. I felt that I had learned this language and that language, my parents, the teachers, different places, but this connection to whatever self or selves, or if there is a self, all of those questions, I think were strongly connected with Lorca's work, but for a long time I was just happy to read his work. I wasn't drawn to translation. And I think part of what has always moved me towards translation and is anger. And that's perhaps an odd thing to say, but it's reading these translations and finding that something has been imposed or something's been left out. And I feel that to reach the poem itself, that I should translate it and engage with it on that level. So it was about 20 years ago that I started working on his translations. And at that time, I was poet in residence at Brandeis in Boston. And it was a rather difficult time. And I found this kind of connection again with the translations, but on a more profound level, to sort of excavating and connecting with my own. I mean, literally, when I say in the intro that it was a way of keeping my heart alive, I mean that almost literally at that time. And that, I think, is what kept it going. So things changed, I'd leave it behind, go back at some point. Translated more of the poems. Later, for instance, I hadn't translated as many of the deep song until I started to look at what is all of this I have here. And I realized that that was one of his books that I had sort of gone past or hadn't spent as much time with.
Thank you for that answer, Rebecca. Thank you for sharing. Let's see, Rita has a question. Why does he conjure thousands, 1,000 butterflies, 1,000 Persian horses? And also, was he depressed? She asks.
Well, was he depressed? Well, 1,000 butterflies. He was a person, I think, a very lively and free spirit. That in the sense that he was very sort of, everyone who met him talked about how charming and engaging he was, that he was like this sort of joyous presence, though he was, I think, often unhappy in a deeper personal sense. And part of his unhappiness, I mean, I hesitate to call someone whose fundamental reality finds no space and only a response of oppression in their society depressed. I mean, it's, of course they're depressed. I mean, it's like his sexuality, his identity from the time he went to Madrid to the university. He was often ridiculed, made fun of, had friends who would then turn on him or betray him, or in the sense of ridicule and mockery. So I think the 1,000 is partly the sense of this inner effervescence. There is some part of Lorca that is, and he talks about this at some point, where it was a tad perhaps related to Whitman with that the sweep, but not that he was anything like the same kind of poet. And I think also the idea of thousands, it's like this idea of this millennia, not just a day, not just a year. Like when he said, I want to sleep a day, a century. And he wanted to live thousands, I think, this kind of. But that's just my guess. He didn't really tell us.
Right. Jerry has a question. Hi, Jerry. It's good to know you're here. Jerry asks, what are Gacela and Casida, and how did translating his work affect your own work? Jerry marvels at the brilliance of his imagery, the continuing surprise of it. I thought the exact same thing during the reading. Just the images continually surprised me, and I'm very familiar with the poems, but it's funny. There's something that they're always fresh, it
Uh-huh.
seems. But did you have any problems conveying the exact image in another language?
Well, there's several questions there. I'll start with maybe the easiest. The Gazella and the Qasida are basically based upon Arabic forms. So some translators have titled the Gazellas Ghazals, but Lorca didn't follow the form of the ghazals strictly. So they are kind of derived forms based upon these traditional forms that go back centuries in Arabic poetry and which were often associated, depending um, on the poet, of course, to some degree, but they often had a strong connection to love and longing, a sort of unresolved longing love that verges on kind of spirituality. So there's this way in which the poems seem, those particular poems seem at times so particularly addressed, perhaps to a single person, and yet also no one. I mean, that last and both were no one. It's that sort of sense of the fluidity of being, but with that fluidity of being, at a certain point, it's like no one. One is the other, both were no one. Um, some of the images, I think, are harder to translate. For instance, Christopher mentioned the essay that I wrote in that anthology about translation. And that was one of the issues of that particular poem was how do you translate certain images? So, and there is, I think, a word that he uses there where it literally implies that these two forces are like wrestlers, but they're also like so entangled. It's like a interpenetrative type image. And it's like, how do you convey that without explaining? Because his language is very simple often. I mean, these images are so precise and often so very simple. And yet, as you look into them, you see there's these kinds of depths of meaning that are intersecting there. And I think that's one of the uh, hardest things about translating him. Um, and he can be hard to translate in that sense, but he has such an apparent simplicity. So, for instance, I've spent a good deal of time translating Cesar Vallejo, who is very intense, very experimental, has a lot of neologisms, very difficult imagery. And yet, oddly, I see them as sort of counterpoints to one another, but like most counterpoints, somewhat related. I think there was a third question here I had that maybe I missed.
I think that covered it. Jerry, is there
Oh,
more?
good.
Sorry, you're not unmuted yet. I'm gonna,
Hi.
there you,
I just wanted to know if, while you were translating, was there any effect on your own work?
Yes, I
I
think
know that.
so. Yeah, I think, I mean, not necessarily, I mean, I think when I look at the work, some of the work that there was, I moved more towards sometimes more fragmentary and more lyrical form. In other words, these shorter lyrical pieces and moving away maybe somewhat from more the idea of a completely, how would I put it? This kind of completely crafted sort of poem that is very much a model that I always try and resist. So it helped in that sense
Mm.
because as I read these poems, there's a way in which, like, reading them, it's just like, once you start reading them, it's just like, if only I could, you know, if you had the energy and the voice to just keep going. Because they are self-contained poems, but there's also this flow.
Mhm.
So I think maybe in that sense.
Mm.
It was great to see you.
Nice to see you. What are you working on now?
Well, I'm translating some more poems by Vallejo, of his posthumous poems. Um, Quite a different sort of struggle, but interesting. And very much sort of, both of them, I think, are very much, sadly, maybe, so relevant to the times.
Mm. Well, these poems are so lovely. What a gift. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming to this reading.
There was a request to hear one of his poems in Spanish. Would you be willing to do that, Rebecca?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe we can close with hearing it in the original.
Mm.
I'll just read a brief one here. Maybe something from the I read this one. It's a bit humorous. It's one of these early poems. Media Luna. La luna va por el agua. ¿Cómo está el cielo tranquilo? Va secando lentamente el temblor viejo del río. Mientras que una rama joven la toma por espejito. So it's half moon, the moon moves through water. How calm is the sky. She is harvesting slowly the ancient tremor of the river, while a young frog takes her for a tiny bear.
Delightful.
I want to thank everybody again for being here. It's such a pleasure to hear the poems. Thank you, Rebecca,
Thank you,
for
Chris.
sharing. Yeah, do be in touch.
Thank you thanks to everyone for coming. It's great to see you. Even in the little boxes we're all in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Wonderful.
Good night. Until next time.
Uh-huh.